Howdy, folks. Hope everybody's doing all right today. This is week 5 of Intro to Animation Intro, or Animation for Characters Intro. I'm not exactly sure what the official title of the class is. I'd have to look at FOL. If you haven't already done so, please make sure that you've placed your progress on the pendulum assignment in the in-class handoff folder. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see me uploading that stuff now. How's everybody's week been going so far? Let me know in the comments. Let me share my screen with you for a second. And this is mostly just me testing to make sure the screen share is working properly. And you can see I'm collecting the work now as we speak. I'm going to use desk pins here, that little utility that allows me to pin one window in front of another. Let's see here. Come on, desk pins, behave yourself. Interesting. Looks like desk pins isn't going to cooperate with Zoom. Wonder if it's the overlay function. All right, well, no big deal. Let me continue along with this. I've got some of the progress in there. I've posted in the chat. You can see the link to the sync sketch where you can review your classmates' work. So while you're waiting as I upload the last of the work for review, make sure that you check out your classmates' work. Remember on sync sketch, when you're looking at a review, you just want to make sure that you leave the meeting so that you can have independent control of the videos. And then when you want to sort of see what everybody's doing, you can hit join meeting. But leaving meeting and just looking at it on your own means you can click around and check out all of the work in progress and then join meeting when it comes time for us to do markups and talk about the work. So check out that stuff now. I'm going to continue adding the work. Cutoff for feedback is 2:30, so I will do one last check before the first break to make sure we've got all our work in there. If you don't get your stuff in on time, Adam, if you could please rename yours. It should be capitalized letter on the last name and on the first name. And Diane, I see you loaded yours a while ago, so you can upload a newer one if you've got it. Who's that?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me? Or?
Yep, I can hear you, Eric. What's up?
Sorry, I was a bit late in the class, and in Zoom, you can't see comments before you entered in. I don't have a link to the sync sketch.
Oh, okay. Thanks for flagging that. Let me copy that comment now.
Do you think you could like put it in like Discord or something?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that too. I'll put it in both places. How's that? Let me just maximize my view here for a sec. Let's see here. Let's see. Pull up the chat here. Let's do this. So sync sketch, copy that. So there's that sync sketch link again. Can you see that okay?
Yep.
Okay, and I'm going to put it in Discord as well.
And we just need to put our work so far into the peer review, or the, I don't remember what it's called.
The in-class handoff folder, that's correct.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thanks for asking. I'll post that sync sketch review in the Animation General channel. If you haven't done so, please make sure you log your attendance in Animation Attendance on Discord. I won't be monitoring those chat channels, but that is where I sort of track who's showing up and who's not. It's not required that you show up for the class time, the live session, but if there are any issues or problems later, one of the first things I'll be checking is seeing, okay, well, were you showing up for the live classes? So please make sure you log your attendance there. Tuck Discord out of the way. Don't need this window right here. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to check the sync sketch and make sure we have all of the work submitted so far. Bouncing around here. Oh, I wonder if I've clicked too many times through too many windows. It looks like I might be crashing sync sketch. Oh no, okay, looks like it's maybe behaving. Let's see. It seems like Zoom sort of struggles when I'm popping in between different views. So we'll see how it goes. Have I crashed?
Hello?
Yep, go ahead. What's up, Sourav?
Yeah, I just want to ask one thing, like what is the naming for this file? Like first name, oh, second, last name, first name?
Yep,
PM.
exactly. Exactly. Just the same as anytime.
Okay, got it. I'm uploading it now. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Last check here. Make sure I've gotten everybody. Okay. Mariam, exhausting. Yeah. It's a lot of work. Okay, let's see here. Let me just reload the page. Excellent. I see a few more submissions there. Thank you, Adam, for renaming that. Much appreciated. Eric, got yours. Thanks very much. Named perfectly. So as I say, while we're downloading this stuff, make sure you check out your classmates' work in progress. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I've got 12 submissions here. Let me just make sure there's no one I missed. View details. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, it looks like I haven't copied all of them here, or I've duplicated some. Stuart. Oh, I've got a couple of Stuarts. Get rid of that. And let's see, who's the other duplicate here? 11. Oh, there we go. I got a couple of Caitlins. There we go. That makes more sense. All right. So I've got 10 submissions. If you do not see your work in this list on Sync Sketch, please let me know in the chat if you've submitted work and I've somehow missed it.
Yeah, I've submitted it now, just now.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you very much. I've got it, Nimish. Thanks very much. Let's go ahead. I'm going to pin that window, see if I can. Oh, interesting. Desk pins does not seem to behave. Huh. Fascinating. Ah, there we go. Cannot pin the taskbar. Let me try that again. Guess I'm just moving too fast for the overlay. There we go. Pin my window now. This is that utility I mentioned a while back for keeping reference visible when you're working in Maya. This will come back into play a bit later, but if you haven't grabbed that utility, desk pins, incredibly useful. I highly recommend it. And then once you've decided you don't want to pin the window anymore, you just hit X, and now the window will fall behind others. So I've got 11 submissions. Is there anybody else? Let me know in the chat if there's anybody else whose work I've missed. Got to slow down. Okay, actually, Sarvnaz, excellent. I see you're working on it, so I'll check in. Just ping me when you've got that work available.
No, I've just uploaded it. You can check now, I guess.
Oh, okay. Who's that speaking?
Sourav.
Okay, back to submissions.
I don't know why it's not.
Did you drop it in the in-class handoff folder?
No. Oh, so wait a second.
There you go.
I dropped it in submissions, I guess. Wait, I'll drop it again.
So, yeah, that's okay. So the place that you should be dropping it, and whenever we're looking at stuff in class, a handful of times I've sort of changed it up a bit, but most times I'll just say during class time, let's just drop it in the in-class handoff folder.
Yeah, it's getting uploaded.
Excellent. Thanks very much. Some of the overlay stuff does not work as well as it should. Okay.
Yeah, it's there now.
All right, perfect. I'm going to stop my screen share for just a second. Some of the behavior of Zoom is a little squirrely when I've got screen share turned on, so I'm going to try and minimize that. Mostly, I wanted you to see me making use of the desk pins application to keep my window in front of the submissions. Okay, let's see. So I've got Nimish on there. I'm going to tuck that away. Class handoff. Reload that page. Sourav, I've got yours. And Sarvnaz, I know you've got one coming, so just ping me when it arrives and I'll grab that. Okay. 1, 2, so 10, 12. I've got 12 so far. Looking for one more. So I've got B, Amy, Zach, Mariam, Stuart, Caitlin, Diana, Mengyang, Eric, Adam, Nimish, and Sourav. And I've got Sarvnaz, one more coming. And then we're good to go. So as I say, make sure you're jumping through and having a look at your classmates' work. Where you should be with this assignment, where do you think? Who can tell me when this assignment is due? Just drop it in the chat if you think you know. Yep, tonight, 11:59 p.m. So theoretically, you should have the entire thing completed. But I suspect there may be a few folks that have errors somewhere in their initial segments. And although we did look at some of the work last week, not everybody had progress. So this is one reason why it's really important to make sure that when we have a new assignment that you get some of that progress in there, just so you have an opportunity for feedback. We'll see how the results are today. The good news is it's not a super heavy weighted assignment. So even if it doesn't go perfectly well, don't sweat it. There's other assignments coming down the pipe that are going to be more heavily weighted. And in a way, it's going to be a review. I'm going to actually take a moment and I want to look ahead at our next assignment. So let me share my screen with you, and I'm going to walk through the assignment very briefly. Okay, and you should all see my screen. Well, hang on a sec. Always makes me nervous when Zoom does this. It flickers black a few times, makes it seem like it's about to die. Let me check the chat here and see. Come on, Zoom, hang in there. Boy, it's really struggling. I apologize if this is an uneven experience on your end. I might just be doing too many things at once. Let's see. Screen share has stopped because the external display is disconnected. Okay, lovely. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to close a couple of things just to make life a bit easier. I'm going to close that there. I'm going to even close that there and just have a single browser tab. I'm going to go and close this window. Okay, this seems like the lightest footprint I can offer Zoom. Let me try that screen share one more time. And let's go share screen. I'm just going to share my browser for the moment. Share screen. Okay, and let me know in the chat if there's any problems with the view. Can you all see my screen? I've got the blog up here. Okay, good. Thanks, Amy. Okay, so the next assignment that we've got coming up is the ball with tail assignment. And the reason this is kind of excited is if you struggled with the bouncing ball or if you struggled with the pendulum, this is your chance to essentially apply the same concepts from those two assignments into a single assignment. And if you did well on the bouncing ball, you will find this very simple. There's a few variations that sort of change up the assignment a little bit, but for the most part, it's the same concept. It's still mass moving through space. Now, a couple of the more important aspects of it that are different. Number one, unlike the bouncing ball or the pendulum assignment that we've been working on, this is an actual living, breathing character, which means it has life and motive force of its own. It thinks, it emotes, it moves. So this is really exciting. But when it's hopping through space, it's just a bouncing ball. When the tail is flowing along behind, it's just another type of pendulum action. So you will find that a lot of this is review. Now, it is weighted more heavily than the other assignments. In the chat, who can tell me what this assignment is worth? And if you're ever unclear about what an assignment is worth, remember, you can go to FOL and go to the class page. And click on the submission folder. So evaluations, submissions, and the information will be there under the ball with tail assignment. Or you can go on the main page. Let me tuck this out of the way. And you go to when the assignment is due and click on that. And it'll give you all sorts of information. This assignment sheet tells you all about the weighting. Okay, so who in the chat can tell me what this assignment is worth? Let me find the chat here. Ba, ba, ba. Oh, that's odd. Where'd my chat go? There we go. So what is the percentage of this assignment worth? And I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. Let me double check. Oh, interesting. I'm not seeing the rubric. Oh, this could be interesting. I wonder if it's not evident. Diana, are you guessing on the value of the assignment? And if not, how did you figure it out?
No, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
I went to evaluations menu and
Yep.
on rates. I don't know if it's in there, but that's what I see.
Yep, that's correct. Very
Okay.
good.
Sure.
So I will be finishing, I apologize for the delay on grading the bouncing balls. I will be finishing that tonight. So you can see how you did on that bouncing ball assignment. And there will be notes there on the bouncing ball of sort of where things went poorly. So make sure you pay close attention to those notes as they arrive so that you have sort of a sense of what you need to work on, what you need to pay attention to. Now, the good news is there's only one ball in this case, so it's a lot less to work on. But I would recommend the same process with this live, ball with tail assignment, that you draw out your plan. This is not going to be from an orthographic side view. This is going to be a 3D view. But if you had problems with staging where your camera was too far back or there's too much dead space around, make sure you pay attention to that you get your camera nice and closely placed, and we'll be working on that. So for next class, what I'm going to be expecting is I'm going to be expecting to see your first pass of progress on the ball with tail. And I'll be opening up the rig a little bit after the feedback cycle and introducing you to some of the details of the rig that we haven't looked at. But the good news is this is the same rig you've used before. This is the Mooly ball. The only difference is we're going to be unhiding the tail. So that's it. Any questions so far about that assignment coming up? Okay, good. I will take your stunned silence as a no. Fantastic. Then let me do one last check and see if there are other assignments submitted in the in-class handoff folder. I see one more there. Let's see, reload. Ah, Jason, got yours. Excellent. Thank you very much. Uploading that now. I'm glad to see everybody's got the assignment length correct. Well done. Give me a little thumbs up if you can see me. It's suddenly suspiciously quiet. A little reaction, give me a thumbs up if you can see and hear me okay. Good, good. Just wanted to make sure that Zoom hadn't crashed and I wasn't aware of it. Thanks very much, everyone. Okay, so let's dive on into the feedback. Once we're finished with the feedback, I'm going to highlight some of the differences with the ball with tail, and I'm going to show you a couple of things animation-wise that are going to be specifically important for the ball with tail assignment. If you haven't already done so, when we get to the break, make sure you take a moment and read through the ball with tail assignment. And I'm just going to make sure that that link to the assignment page is there as well. It should be on the submission folder, but I am just going to make sure that you've got it in multiple places. I'm also going to post it in the Discord under animation. And let's see here, I'm going to put it in resources, I think. There we go. There we go. And I'll post it here as well. There's that assignment page. So now if we could all move over to Sync Sketch, and I'm going to quickly go through and do some review on the work. I'm going to be paying particular attention to the first segment of the tail to make sure that that's working well, because if it's not, everything else going on with the tail is going to have some problems. Now, out of curiosity, before I start, in the chat, or actually, let's see here, I'm just going to check reactions here. In the chat, if you could, or in your reactions, if you could, give me a thumbs up if you worked with a process where you did the first segment of the pendulum first, and then went to the second, and then the third. Give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, if you sort of animated the whole tail all at once, give me an oh no face. Now, the reason I flag this is not because it's impossible to animate the entire tail all at once. It is possible. I think it's much harder, but I'm curious to see who attempted to do it all at once, who attempted to do it in pieces. Okay, so it seems about an even split. So let's see. Okay, and I'm going to share my screen here. Let me close down any tabs that aren't necessary at the moment before I share my screen. And let me turn on screen sharing. Now, if Zoom misbehaves on this one, I might just open it up in a browser and refresh it that way. And we'll see how it goes. Let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. Seems like Zoom's behaving itself. Okay, so let's hop on into the Sync Sketch review. Hit the play sign here, and I'm going to hop on to the, let me join the live meeting. I'm going to hop on to Beatrice's pendulum, and I'm going to go start presenting. So I've got control here. If you've got Sync Sketch open in your browser, you should see it updating in real time as I'm shuttling along, scrubbing back and forth along the timeless line. So let's hit play, see how it's looking. Okay. Let me zoom in here for a second. And on Sync Sketch, you can sort of mouse wheel in and out to zoom into a section. For stuff like this, it's sometimes a little easier to get a bit closer. So looking at this first one of the issues that I see here, Beatrice, is the tail is continuing to hang back on an angle like this as it rises up. And keep in mind, gravity is going to want to pull that tail down to vertical and even possibly swing back the other way as it's moving along. So although the tail will hang back initially as the pendulum takes off, it will start to swing back down to vertical. So some of that element is missing here. And that continual hanging back is some of what makes it feel like silk or drapery or something fluffy and light. So just have a look at that first part there. This moment here, when the tail swings forward, one of the elements I would be expecting to see is, rather than this second segment on an angle like that, I would expect to see the second segment sort of hanging back like that, and the third segment sort of doing this kind of a thing, that each piece is trying to catch up to what the other piece is doing. So there's this offset. And so that's how we get some of those shapes in the pendulum, like, the C or the reverse C, or the S or reverse S. Some of these changing shapes where each segment of the pendulum is kind of traveling and doing its own thing. And that's one of the reasons why I find it tends to be a little more successful if you deal with each segment successively on its own. Now you can see a little bit, there's that C shape, and it's subtle, but you can see Beatrice has that reverse S shape going on, where each segment is sort of offset and delayed based on what's happening. But I think some of the swings are a little bit much. I would say probably this, this range of swing is probably, sorry, there's a weird offset between my mouse and the where it's marking. So I apologize that my drawings are a little goofy. So this first segment I think looks pretty good. The second segment I might not have swing quite as high. Third segment, again, not as high. So some of those swings seem excessive for how much energy is in the system. This is another moment where I would expect to see that tail kind of swinging back to vertical like that. So the way it's holding back here is creating that impression of it being sort of light, silken drapery, that kind of thing. And let's see here. I think I might, and let me zoom out here for a second. I think I might go and get my tablet. This bit here though, right there, that's awesome. That offset is working well. Again, I would sort of tone down how far it swings, but that offset between the different segments is working quite nicely. The first segment is actually working pretty well. So I don't necessarily think I would change a lot about the animation on the first segment. I think it's just how you're handling the second and third segment is not helping. And remember, they sort of behave the same way as the first segment. They're going to overshoot. They're going to delay when they take off. They're going to overshoot when it comes to a stop. And they're going to ultimately try and work their way back down to hanging straight down. But good effort. This is working pretty well. I would say revisit some of those areas that I flagged. Let's see here. And I forgot to ask, B, are you here? Are you listening? Just ping me in the chat if you can hear my comments and feedback.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, excellent. Okay, good. I suddenly thought, oh, I could be sharing this information with everybody except the person it really matters to. Okay, good. Now, Amy, I'm gonna. Are you tied up right now, Amy, or I can circle back to yours?
David, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah, just do my last. I'm in the middle of a meeting still until 3 o'clock. Sorry.
Good. I just wanted to confirm. I'll circle back around after 3.
All right.
Okay, Zach, are you with me? Okay, excellent. And you can hear me all right. So let's have a look. Just watching it here. Yeah, this is working pretty well, Zach. There's a couple of places where it's a bit extreme and a couple of places where it's holding back a bit. But let me highlight some of the areas where it's working especially well. So this moment right here, where the pendulum starts to take off, and you can see the first segment swing back, delaying, and then the first segment starts to swing forward, and then back again. Yeah, that feels fantastic. It feels very heavy. I think the other segments are a little bit over the top in how much they react. So for this moment here, I might not have the tail hanging back quite this much. That sort of starts to feel like it's silk and light drapery kind of a feel. This moment here, this amount of hang back feels more appropriate. Swing through. I would say at this moment here, imagine that as this piece is swinging like that, each subsequent piece is sort of offset and delayed. And then when we get to this moment here where the first segment is heading in the other direction, then you would have this moment where, you know, the second segment starts to reverse direction and change, but the third segment is still heading this way. So you get this sort of moment where each segment is kind of doing its own thing. And that will help that sort of S shape, which I can sort of faintly see here. You've got a teeny little bit of an S shape. I would just expect it a little bit further along in the process. This bit right here, really awesome. The amplitude is great. The offset between the different segments is feeling really good, feels nice and heavy. Yeah, all through this section here is working really well. So that's I think part of what makes it work well is that there's this one section that's really believable, and it kind of carries a lot of the other elements. This part is less successful right through this section here, and it's because you've got the tail sort of hanging back for a long time like drapery, and that's where I would expect to see this initial hang back would be correct, but then the tail would start to swing back to vertical. The other problem that I'm seeing, and let me get in a little closer because this is a bit tricky, is let's watch the delay on the tail. So here we've got, you know, this first position, and that's correct. But let me turn on ghosting for a minute. And I'm highlighting this in Zach's because I expect I'm going to see this in a lot of people's work. So this part is working well, that the first segment of the tail is hanging back appropriately. It's doing what I'd expect. So great job there. First segment's working exactly how I'd anticipate. However, the second segment, if I imagine, okay, second segment starts sort of here, and then at this moment here, it would still be hanging down vertically, because although there's stuff going on with the first segment, the second segment is still like, well, as far as I can tell, nothing's changed because that first ball hasn't moved. And so the second segment of the tail, it's going to be like, hey, nothing's changed. I'm staying right where I am. And then it's not going to be until you get to sort of this moment where the tail starts to shift that you would see this segment start falling away like that, but it's going to sort of fall straight down. And then here's where you would probably see that tail hanging back like that. Now, subsequently, the third segment, and I'll just do it in a different color so it's easy to see, it would be doing the same thing. It'd be sort of hanging out, doing its own thing. And we would get to this point, and that first segment still, the first segment swinging, but the third segment, it's got no information that something's changed. So it's just going to continue hanging straight down. And then it's only at this moment that it starts to go, oh, we're leaving, we're going someplace. And so you get this kind of thing. And so applying that same sensibility that you've done successfully with the first piece of the tail, you want to apply it to the second and the third segment. And actually, this would probably be a good example file because other parts of it are working well. So Zach, if you could, take your Maya file and drop it off in the in-class handoff folder. And I'm going to actually open up the Maya file and I'll show you how I would address that because I think this will be a relevant example for a few folks. So I'm going to circle back around to that. But that start off, what happens at the very beginning is going to establish sort of the subsequent behavior of the pendulum. And so that'll help build some of those offsets. Yeah, and it is very tricky. And truthfully, the bouncing ball assignment and the pendulum assignment, I don't honestly expect most people to be super successful with it because it's the first time you've done this kind of thing. On the ball with tail assignment, that's where we take those same concepts and try and reapply them. So it's review. And that's where I'm thinking for most folks, it will go a bit better. And so don't stress too much if you feel like the bouncing ball didn't go well or the pendulum didn't go well. You get a second crack at both those concepts. So Zach, I'm going to circle back around to yours. Let me just make a note. X 0 to 18 or thereabouts. Show all three segments. So I'm just making a note to myself saying, hey, grab Zach's file, go from frame 0 to 18 or thereabouts, and show how all three segments would be behaving on the startup. Important for everyone to know, I may be opening up Zach's file, but chances are what I'm going to be showing is going to apply to everybody. So you want to pay close attention when I do that. Mariam, I'm going to jump to yours. Let's have a look here. Some good offset shapes, Mariam. There's some significant challenges with the tail hanging back too much and feeling a lot like drapery. But I can see in this first part, you've got some nice offsets. But the stuff I'm going to be showing on Zach's file, Mariam, it's going to apply to you as well on that start off. So when I look at the first segment, the offset and delay is doing exactly what I'd expect, but you have the same challenge where your second segment is swinging out this way when it should be hanging straight down. Oops. The offset is very strange here on my mouse. So that's definitely going to apply to you. But this little bit right here where the top segment, the first segment is swinging forward and the other two segments are kind of catching up and then it whips through, that's actually working pretty well. That's some of the kind of behavior we're looking for. These swings here, this whipping back and forth, it's way too fast. And that's where it really starts to feel like a prehensile tail or a, oh, excellent. Thanks, Zach, for dropping off that Maya file. That's where it starts to feel like a prehensile tail, like it's actually got a life of its own. Those quick whip actions back and forth. And so generally speaking, if you see these moments where you're kind of moving from one side to the other in a handful of frames, 2-3 frames, then you definitely know it's going to be too fast. And so you want to slow that down significantly. This moment here, especially, the tail is just sort of stuck and hung back there. And remember, it's always, once it settles down, it's always going to start working its way back to hanging straight down. And this starts to look like something that maybe you're animating all three segments at once, or maybe you did the first segment individually, but then the second and third segment you kind of just did together. And that's where you get a lot of C shapes and reverse C shapes, but those S shapes don't appear. And that's where it starts to get into trouble. Stuart, let's have a look at yours. Excellent, really good offset, Stuart. Did you do this one piece by piece, or did you do it sort of all at once, Stuart? Okay, good. Yeah, it definitely shows. I think some of the amplitudes of the swings are a bit extreme. You might be able to actually just take some of those curves and just scale them down by 20%, and it might actually look better. But it's definitely, it's got the right idea. And this is one that I want to sort of note for everybody to look at. Notice how each piece feels really distinctively individual from the others. That is part of what makes it feel like just a sort of a heavy kind of object with no life of its own. It's not so light that the wind holds it back. So this is actually working pretty well. There's a couple of places where it feels a lot like drapery. So when we get into this segment here, where we're dropping down and the tail just sort of hangs back for a while like this through that straight section there, that's where it starts to feel like drapery. If this action happened a bit faster, that might justify sort of it holding back. But at this point, I would expect, you know, on a heavier tail, those segments would have swung back down to vertical. Now, I know part of the challenge is that you're trying to thread the needle and get it through that gap without the tail hitting anything. But honestly, don't hesitate to just sort of fudge it and go ahead and make this triangle smaller so it's not in your way. That's honestly the easiest way to solve it, because there's nothing about the assignment that I require it to move through narrow spaces or anything like that. You don't have to stress about that. But yeah, overall, really, really good. This is the more successful version of the assignment I've seen so far. Good job offsetting all of the pieces. They feel distinctively different aside from that one place going through the middle. This is working really well. Caitlin, are you with me? Okay, excellent. Let's have a look. I like the maze design. Definitely make sure on your final submission, and this sort of goes for everyone, make sure you remember to hide those animation controllers. Wow, this is fast. So there's a lot of quick movement here, which is challenging. I'm guessing, Caitlin, you did this each piece individually, correct? Yeah, it definitely shows. So we're seeing some of those reverse S shapes like this, you know, zigzaggy shape here. That's a hallmark of sort of dealing with each segment individually, and you get a lot more complex behavior, and I think honestly a lot more accurate behavior this way. So good job there. I think one of the things that might help, given how fast the character drops down, let me just play it at speed. Yeah, given how fast the character drops down, you might want to consider something where the tail sort of compresses up as it drops down, that each segment kind of squashes on itself. And then when it hits the bottom, you know, here, that's where that tail would fall and straighten out and sort of do a jolt thing. This is one of the first sort of problematic areas, is we go from perfectly straight, perfectly vertical to suddenly boom, you know, it's this crazy pose. And that gives it a feel like it's anticipating what it's about to do. And if the idea that we're animating this pendulum, that it's a character and it's sort of doing like arms back, you know, like an anticipation to taking off, this is great. But we're going for something that's like, it's just dead heavy, you know, sort of metal segments hanging below the pendulum, no life of its own. And so this sort of shape I'd expect maybe a little later in the movement. This here, this pose, way too far back. It starts to feel like silken drapery. That wind resistance is pushing it back here. So treat this moment essentially the same as you would if the character was starting from 0. So from frame 14, okay, so we got the character's tail perfectly vertical, the 3 segments like that. And then this frame here, and I'm going to turn on ghosting to make it a little easier for me. So this moment here, the first segment would be sort of like, okay, well, I'm just sort of bending as much as I have to, but the other 2, they'd be perfectly vertical. Next frame, okay, well, he's taken off, so this would be like that. Second segment would be like that, and that'd be like that. And then here, maybe first segment like that, like that, and like that. And then here, it would start swinging back down to vertical, that tail like that, and like that. And then back to vertical there, like that, and like that. And then here, it's actually starting to feel pretty close, except it needs to swing through. So let me show you that without ghosting now. And this is just my best estimation. Let me get rid of this there. So this is the sort of thing I would expect to see turn on ghosting again for a second. So this is where we get that S shape like that. And I think I'm sort of scaling the tail up. It's getting longer as I draw it. But that's one area where it feels a little more like drapery and a little less successful. This is challenging too, because you're essentially moving really fast through the space. And so these really extremely quick movements are part of what makes it especially challenging. That you're going to have really extreme movements on the tail. This takeoff, however, is working great. What you do here, the way it swings through up to this moment is awesome. All I would want to see at this point then is from here, when the body stops, so you know your tail is sort of here, everything's looking good, I would expect it to swing through much quicker and much more extreme, because that's a pretty hard stop. That kind of an idea. And that's, I think what I drew there is really quick, but those are some of the shapes that I would expect to see. Diana, you with me? Let me check my chat here.
Yep. I'm
Excellent. Here. Excellent. Let's have a look. Wow, fantastic. Yeah, really well done.
Yeah,
yeah, the multiple passes on the first segment really helped. I think some of the swings might be a little bit extreme on the second and third segment. That is sort of exaggerating that whip action a little bit. And I think that's part of what makes it start to feel like it's moving through something thicker than air, just slightly thicker than air. Because wider amplitude means it's sort of, well, actually, see, no, that's not actually true. Let me think about this for a sec. Because wider amplitude means faster, and truthfully, part of it is it feels slow. So one of the things I'm going to test here for a second, I'm just going to use one of the tools here in SyncSketch. I'm going to speed this up for a second, and I just want to see. So I'm playing it at, oh, sorry, I slowed it down, silly Dave. Let me play it at 36 frames a second here. I just want to see what happens here. So yeah, when I speed it up a little, it starts to feel more closely to correct, somewhere between 24 and 36 frames per second when I accelerate it. So if you took your entire animation and, I don't know, compressed it by 10%, I think it would even feel better. But this is a really, you know, kind of fiddly note. Truthfully, it's working very well. It's hitting all the marks. The offsets between the shapes are working really well. Yeah, brilliantly done. There's very little I would change on this, aside from a global scale to see if it improves the look of it. But definitely this, for your classmates, this is the one to watch. This is an excellent exemplar of what the assignment should look like.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, thank you. No, really well done. And for your classmates as well, part of it was Diana was sending her work several times for feedback. She got feedback on the first segment to make sure that it was working well. And this is something anybody can do. You know, send me an email, hit me up on Discord, get that feedback.
Actually, your last feedback helped me a lot.
Oh, good. Well, and certainly with this assignment as well, if you've got the first segment working well, the other two, it's pretty easy. You just do the same thing. If there's any problem with the first segment, it's really going to be impossible to get a good result. And so that's why it's always important to really make sure that first cycle of feedback goes well. So yeah, well done. I really have nothing else to say. Good job, Diana.
Thanks.
Okay. Mengyang, sorry, you've got to follow Diana. I'm curious. I'm on to Mengyang. Mengyang, are you with me?
Okay. Yeah.
Yep. Good job. Okay, fantastic. Tough act to follow. Let's have a look. Out of curiosity, Mengyang, did you animate all of the segments at once, or did you do each piece separately? Okay, okay, interesting. It visually, it reads like all of the tail was done at once, because I'm not seeing some of those S shapes and reverse S shapes, or they're pretty subtle. Like this part here, this kind of technically is an S shape. Like the offset between those segments, it's really, really subtle. But looking at it, I think it's an S shape or a very vague S shape, but mostly I'm seeing C and reverse C. And that's part of what makes it feel like it was sort of done all at once. So let's dig into just the first section here. I'm going to zoom in. Hang on a sec. Let me see what the chat is. Okay, so definitely I get the sense that if you were sort of making revisions on the entire tail, that might be part of what was sort of throwing things off. So I think it's a good idea if you approach it at the beginning from a piece by piece, you know, do segment 1, segment 2, segment 3, make sure that when you're revising it, you go back to, you hide everything and you do revisions just on the first segment until you're really happy with it, and then reveal the second segment and sort of make adjustments. And then only when you're done with both the first 2 segments, then reveal the third segment and do that. Because I think the revisions that you made in general kind of just mask the fact that you've done this sort of staged approach. So let's look here, and I'm going to step along. So gotcha. So you're trying to smooth it out. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to draw, you know, to mirror the tail position. There's their segments like that. And so this first move, and let me turn on ghosting for a second. So at this first stage, essentially this first segment is going to be sort of trying to get back as close to where it is. And so, you know, the first ball, it would drop down a bit. But other than that, it would be staying right where it is. The other 2 segments of the tail would be underneath it. And so it would be, you know, the next one would be straight down. The fourth one would be just straight down, that you'd have this kind of a shape. And then on the next frame, the first segment is still thinking about where it was. The second segment's maybe starting to move. The third segment is still, you know, doesn't know that anything's going on. Here, you know, maybe this one is sort of holding back like that. And the third one's just starting to go. This moment here, that first segment maybe is starting to swing through. The second segment is still really thinking about where it was. Third segment is still getting started off. And like that, like that, like that. And so that's where you get this, you know, sort of reverse C, reverse S, you know, forward S, reverse C again, those changes in shape. And that's what's missing on this start off. So when, Mengyang, when I go over Zach's file at the beginning, same thing is going to apply to yours here. Okay, and let me see here. So part of it is also this segment here, this first segment is operating in a really narrow range. It feels constrained. And then everybody else is sort of swinging as a child of that. So the second segment has a wider range. The third segment has the widest range like that. And instead, what you should be seeing is the first segment has a range like that. The second segment has the same kind of range, but it could be anywhere along that arc, depending on where the other one was. And the third segment, same thing. It has sort of a range, a natural range of movement that could be anywhere along that arc. And so that's where you get some more extreme shapes. Instead, what you're having is the first segment is really feeling really constrained and artificially held in order to limit it to just a C this way or a C that way. And that's sort of not what we're looking for here. This little bit here, though, I can see that subtle reverse S shape here. So definitely some of the segment by segment work that you did is showing. I think you were just too constrained with the range, especially on the first segment. And so that's probably what forced you to kind of go back and make some revisions. Okay, let's see here. Eric, you with me?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Did you do this sort of all at once, Eric, or was this segment by segment?
Segment by segment.
Were you happy with the results on the first segment before you sort of moved on to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no idea. I haven't looked at it yet. I'm just sort of curious to see.
Okay. Okay. I was a bit confused. I'm like, no. Yeah, I was. I think I was.
Yeah. Let me see here.
Was
Yeah. Okay. So I think the first segment is actually working pretty well. So tracking along, and I'm just going to get nice and close here for a second. And I'm going to make a little ghost mark here. Just mark that. Turn on ghosting here for a second. Let's increase that. And let's tidy this up for a sec. So right here by frame 5, Eric, I would still have that tail sort of more back to its starting position, and then it also means that each subsequent segment would be hanging down from the same spot. So essentially, segment 2 and segment 3 wouldn't look visually any different. You'd have something like this, where that first segment. And so the stuff I'm going to do is with Zach's file is going to apply directly to what's going on in your file for this start off.
okay.
Yep, definitely. And then the long hang back here. So this segment hanging back, this first segment hanging back so far, that's part of what it makes feel like drapery, that the body's not moving all that fast. And so you would think the weight of the tail and gravity would just sort of, it would naturally start to swing back to vertical and then sort of shoot past. But because it doesn't, because it hangs back, that's part of what makes it feel very light and airy. Just going along here. Although, great job. So this moment here is the right idea. It's just a little bit off. So I'm going to track the base of this tail here for a second. Boy, man, I tell you, my mouse offset is bizarre. So where I'm drawing with my mouse and where it's actually making a mark, completely two different things. Let me see here if I can. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so click. Oops. Click. So see how the spacing, Eric, it gets tighter together on the tail through this segment here, and then it starts to take off. What I would expect to see instead is that the sort of the speed of the tail would be consistent, that if that's sort of the last gap, then at this point it would swing through much further, that it essentially would follow through, that first segment would keep going at the same pace. And so because there's this error on the first segment, it kind of messes things up a little bit on the others. But the amplitude of this move is kind of correct. It's sort of where this tip ends up is kind of what I expected. So there's bits of it that are working well, but it's the shape of it that's not quite right. That instead what I would expect to see is something where this tail is probably on its way back, this segment is overshot, this one is kind of coming, so the third segment is going in this direction, the second segment has reversed and is coming back, the first segment, he's already on his way like that. But in the aggregate, this C shape is sort of putting it roughly in the range of motion that I would expect. See here, and this bit too is working well. So see how you've got it swinging forward at this point. That's also what I'd expect to see. But again, the spacing is a little bit off. So if I go like, whoops, silly Dave, keep forgetting the offset here. So let's see a spacing, 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 spacing. And so there, see this moment where it stops, where the spacing is getting larger, which is sort of what I expect because it's sort of swinging to vertical, gravity's helping it along. And then all of a sudden the body stops and the tail does these small spaces to swing through. And think of it like a person sitting on a swing, getting pushed. The place where they're moving the fastest is at the bottom of the swing, where inertia and gravity are working together to make those gaps as wide as possible. And that's what I'd expect to see. Tighter spacing at the you know, so when the swing is going through, the tighter spacing is sort of up here. The bigger spaces are down here. You know, that's where the character is accelerated. And so that's what I'm not seeing that I would expect for that. So if you get that working on the first segment and then just carry the same logic through, I think you'll get a better result on this. Let's see, Adam, are you with me? So let me pull up chat here. Okay, excellent. I'm guessing these duplicate controls, Adam, you might have done Control D or something like that. Do you know, Adam, if your character rig is referenced or not? Oh, okay. So ordinarily what I would do is I would say unload the reference and delete anything that's still in the scene and then reload the reference and that'll fix it. But chances are as you were working, I know Control D in Maya is to duplicate. So if you had like the first controller of the tail selected and you hit Control D by accident, it would make duplicate controls of all of them below, but it would nest them within the hierarchy, so they're not going to be apparent and it's going to mess up your rig. The easiest way to fix this, especially if your character rig isn't already referenced, is just go ahead and reference in a rig properly and then select each control on your animated character, select the first control, double click on the timeline to copy all that animation, and then select the same controller on the new character and paste that animation on there. And so you can just sort of copy and paste the animation across from the unreferenced character onto your referenced character, and then unload the reference, hide it, delete everything in the scene, and then reload your reference. And now you've got a reference character with your animation, no additional controls, especially if you're finding that as you're working, they're kind of getting in the way. You're trying to select one thing and you keep getting the wrong thing. And it's a huge pain in the butt. Actually, I may make a note. Repair scene. If I have time, Adam, I will get you to hand off your scene file and I can show you how to do that repair process. Sure, if you can find the pieces, if you can identify which ones are not the correct ones, sure, go ahead. But what I would say is it's a bad idea to get in the habit of working on unreferenced rigs. With simple characters like this, yeah, no big deal. It's like 3-4 nodes, piece of cake to delete. The second you're getting into a full humanoid character, an accidental duplication and nodes, you're talking potentially hundreds of nodes, it's not practicable to go in and sort of pick out which ones are the wrong ones and get rid of them. And so that's why I'd say definitely make sure that going forward, you're always referencing your character. Let's see here. I'm just going to step along frame by frame. So on the same note for a few people that I've had here on the start, see how your tail isn't sort of hanging back to its starting position there, and that propagates through and affects everything off the start. Strangely, the tail looks like it's moving ahead of the movement of the character. And then it swings back. So there's some sort of strange behavior there that I wouldn't expect on that first segment. Yeah, at this moment, Adam, I'd be anticipating shapes more like that as that top segment is swinging through, the others are sort of catching up like that. And the amplitude of the swing through as well, I think, is a bit extreme. I'd probably imagine something like, you know, this kind of a thing where this tail is still going up and the reverse. Oh, really? Oh, okay, interesting. Let me stop screen share for a second. Thanks for flagging that. Stop share. Out of curiosity, actually, without me sharing screen, if everybody wants to go to SyncSketch, just open up in your browser. And I want to see if, as I'm scrubbing along in SyncSketch, if you've joined the meeting, your browser, you should see it updating in real time as I'm doing it. I'm just curious to see if that's working. So let me just shuttle. I'm just going to scrub back and forth on Adam's. And is that showing up for people? Just give me a thumbs up if you're seeing it update. Okay, there's an unmuted mic somewhere. Eric, hang on a sec. There we go. Yeah, okay, good. So it's useful for me to share the screen so it's updating and showing in Zoom. But if for some reason your Zoom screen isn't showing you things shuttling along, you should be able to see it in the sync sketch itself. Oops, okay, I can't minimize. Let me try screen share yet again. One moment, please. Oh yeah, sure, Sourav. I shared it a couple of times at the beginning, but I know it gets buried in the chat as people are talking. And if you join the class late, you might miss it. It's kind of annoying that Zoom doesn't sort of share those chat messages for the entire session when everybody arrives. Have you got it there, Sourav? Okay. So Nimish, Sourav, Jason, and I know Sarvi, you've got yours coming. So we've got 4 more cycles of feedback to do, but we're at the top of the hour, so I am going to take a break. I'll take a moment to download any other files that have shown up. So Sarvi, if you've uploaded yours, I'll grab that. And I'll also grab Zach's Maya file and get that ready and opened up so that we can look at it together. But for now, let's take a 10-minute break, stretch your legs, get a breath of fresh air, build those good RSI fighting habits. Stop. Hello and welcome back from the break. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Excellent. Good. All right, awesome. Thanks. All right, so I'm going to shift just because the feedback cycles get a little dry when it's sort of the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to open up Zach's Maya file so I can show you that item that, as you can see from the feedback, was coming up over and over again, how we handle that start off. But folks that I've gone through and folks that I have yet to go through, chances are this might apply to you. So please pay close attention. Sorry, just getting my, whoops. What just happened to my camera there? Sorry, one moment. Oh, hang on a sec. My camera's misbehaving. There we go. All right, so let me share my screen with you, and I'm just going to make sure I've got everything closed that I can to minimize the processor load. Okay, it looks like we're good to proceed. Let's see. Come on, share screen. There we go. Sure. All right, so you should be able to see my screen. Go ahead and just let me know in the chat if anybody is unable to see my screen. You should see the Discord interface in front of me. I'm going to open up Maya here. Sourav, you're not able to see Maya? Oh, rats. Okay, well, thanks for letting me know. Let me stop share and try this one more time. Zoom. Let's try this one more time. Here we go. I'm going to try, I'm going to try just sharing my application. Let's see here and see if that's showing up. Okay, your screen sharing is paused. Why is it paused? Recording on this computer. Yeah, interesting. Okay, let me stop share for a second. Let me try share one more time. Okay, sharing the entire screen. Okay, let me see if that's working now. I'm just going to shuttle back and forth in Maya. Are folks able to see my screen share now? Alt-H, come on. Where's my chat? Oh, whoops. Control-Z, there we go. Still no dice. Keep hoping, Sourav. We may have to jump into Discord for this to be visible. This is a little vexing. Let me stop share one more time. Just make sure. I'm going to do a little test here. Yeah, it's surprising. Usually Zoom is a little more reliable than this, but I'm going to pause the recording for a second and see if it will behave now. Let's see, pausing. Welcome back, everybody. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. All right, that's exciting. One step forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Got 9 folks, 10 folks. We're getting close to a quorum. Okay. Let's see. 12, 13, missing somebody. Who are we missing? Okay, well, hopefully they'll rejoin us. Okay, thanks for your patience. I'm going to try screen share one more time. Sharing my screen. And if the gods are kind, you should be able to see Maya in front of you. Give me a little thumbs up if you can see Maya. Okay, looks like it's working now. Fantastic. All right. So I'm going to just walk through really quickly this initial part. And you can see Stuart has, or sorry, this is Zach, has referenced in the file with the same capital A namespace as I use, which means all of my hiding tools are going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hide the second and third segments of the tail so that I'm only showing, interesting, it looks like, okay, this is a common issue. Delete that animation on the visibility so that it stays hidden. Whoops, Control Z. So that these controls stay hidden. There we go, 0. Shuttle along, okay, there we go. So we got our first segment. I'm gonna go ahead and launch BH Ghost here, and I'm gonna make sure that I grab that segment of geometry, that first segment of the tail, and I'm gonna add it to BH Ghost as well. So Window Outliner, grab that geometry under the geo group, and it's joint 1, there's the cylinder, there's the ball joint. I want this next one, there's the ball joint, and I'm gonna say add selected mesh, ghost. So I have that visual target to guide me. So the first thing that I'm gonna do is confirm that my first segment is actually working correctly. And I can see by frame 4, it's a little bit slow, sort of hanging back here. I would be more inclined to have it much closer to that starting position there, like that. And then I'm going to add a few keys to make sure it's not swinging backwards in anticipation. There we go. Like that. Like that. There we go. And I might hold it back a little bit more so we can sort of check the spacing here. Ghost, 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 ghost. Yeah, okay, that looks okay for a start off. I'm not gonna noodle this too much. Let's see. This would actually be lower. Ghost. There we go. Each time that segment is thinking about where it would have been and is trying to stay as close to that as possible. And so it's a fairly quick takeoff. There, that feels a little better. There we go. So all through there is working well. So up to this point, that feels pretty good. There we go. See, I see something in the chat here. So unfortunately, Amy sort of sussed out like, hey, if I have to do something at the beginning, how do I do it without destroying half of the work I've done so far? Well, sadly, a lot of cases, most of the changes, if they happen at the beginning of the scene, will affect everything downstream of it. The one thing you can console yourself with there is that, whoops, I'm changing the thickness of my line there. If it's wrong, it's wrong. It's got to be fixed. And there's nothing for it. But doing something the second time is going to go much faster because, well, now you've practiced it once before, you're getting quicker at it. So it will not take as much time. And surprisingly, sometimes bits of it will actually be salvageable. So what I would say is go through the same process where you hide the other controls. You don't delete the animation, you just hide the controllers and the geometry. You make revisions on the first segment of the tail, and then reveal the second segment and make revisions as is needed. Now, it may mean wholesale deleting some sections of the animation. It could just mean the keys where they are correct, and you just need to shift the amplitude of that movement. And you'll see it here when I'm working on Zach's. There's animation all through here. Now, I'm revising the animation just on the first segment, but we're going to see how much of the work I can retain. So at this moment here, I would sort of have the tail swing through like this, and let me get this out of my way so I can see sort of what's going on. So you can see some of the keys are at the same spot as I had before, except this moment here, I would continue to have the tail swinging through like this. So essentially, as it's stepping along, ghost, 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 and this is actually slowing down, so I would expect it to swing through faster here. So it means I actually want something like this, ghost. So you can see I'm keeping the key where it is, I'm just changing the amplitude of that movement. And let's see what it does to my spacing. So ghost, ghost, there, that's better. Ghost, ghost, ghost. There we go, that's getting better. And then this key here, probably like that. Let me just zoom out a little bit. Goes like that. And then let me go back to the next key, this one here. And that's actually probably where I want them. So I could actually leave that as it is, I think. Let's see here. There we go. So now let's reveal our next segment, see how much my revisions here have impacted what I need to do with the rest of it. So I'm going to bust all here. So there we go. The first segment hanging back much more, swings through. And then swings back like that. Yeah, that's probably correct. Let's see here. Play again. Looks like I might needed to have held it back a little bit more. So let's just hold that one back a little bit more. And this one back a little bit more. And this one back a little bit more. Oops. So you can see I'm still making my revisions where Zach had his keys to begin with. Let's see. Okay. So now let's reveal the next segment and see how much I can keep of what I had before. So I'm going to show segment 2. I'm going to grab this controller. I'm going to change the part that I have, so I'm going to go ahead and clear that and go to my outliner, window, outliner. And I'm going to grab the next ball joint here. I'm going to say add selected mesh. Let's ghost it, and we'll do the same thing we did before, where we essentially Let me get this out of the way. I'll tuck it here. Pull my BH Ghost up. This Zoom interface is a vexing beast sometimes. There we go. Okay. Again, I'm going to zoom in here, checking my ghost. So this first segment has no awareness that things are changing, which means it's going to be trying to stick as close as it can to where it was originally. And then this moment here, it's actually not going to be a whole lot different from what it was before. This here, like that, here, like that-ish, like this. And as is typical, I have a lot of keys sort of at the beginning. And there, I'm going to add a bit of a key here, like that. That's sort of, but now looking here, just a small adjustment, I think. Don't even need to change the key there. And then on this next segment, I'll sort of animate. Let's see, I'll animate to, I don't know, 30, frame 31, just to see what's going on here. Check my first segment and make sure there was probably another key that I hadn't revised. Swing it through. Swing that through a bit more. This one a bit more. There we go. And then this key, get this out of the way. This key here, he is swing through more like that. So there we go. See how that looks with two segments. Pretty heavy. Okay, now let's reveal our third segment. And again, I'm going to open up my BH Ghost, get rid of that geo that was in there before. Actually, I don't want any of my ghosts from that before. And I'm going to go ahead to my outliner. Oops, not my graph editor, silly Dave, my outliner. And I'm going to grab that last ball joint there, add selected mesh. Go ahead and ghost him so I can see my starting position here. And same process. I'm going to step along and see what's happening here. So at this moment here, now you can see actually I don't really have to change much because what was working there before is pretty much working here now. This is where I need to make some revisions. This segment here. And again, it's going to be sort of thinking about where it was before. So the ball stationary, it drops a little bit, And so it's thinking, okay, well, guess I'm dropping now. And then it reverses direction, sort of hangs there. And so it's like, okay, well, this is where I live now. And now it starts to lift up and it's like, oh, okay, well, I was down there. So I'm just going to keep thinking about being down where I was. And it lifts up a bit more. It's like, well, I was happier there. I'm going to stay there. And it's like, oh, okay, fine. We're leaving. I'll just have to deal. And so I went from here, and I'm going to ghost, to here, ghost. So if I was here and then I'm here, I guess next I want to be somewhere here. And it's like, oh, well, I guess I'll go sort of as close as I can to where I thought I was going to be. And so if I was here and then I'm here, I guess I should be somewhere around here now. Oh, okay, well, I'm lower than that. So I'm just going to kind of go like that and point as close as I can. So if I was here, then I was here. I guess next I'm going to be here. Okay, well, I'm a little bit lower than that, so I'm going to swing up like that. If I was here and then here, I guess I'm going to be somewhere around here. Okay, well, I'll try and get as close as I can to that. And so each frame, it's just sort of thinking, okay, well, what did I do before? Where am I right now? And if I were to do the same thing, where would I be next? So I guess I'd be here. And that's pretty close, actually. And so it looks like most of what Zach's got going on, I can use. Let's see. So from here to here, I'd try and be there. From there to there, I guess I'd try and be here. So I guess I'd bend that up a little bit more. And then if I was here and then there, then I guess I'm going to try and be here. So I'd bend that up a little bit more. And then if I was here, then here, I guess I'd try and be here. Yep, which I am. Great. Carry on. And now let's go to our end spacing. Give him a BH ghost. Swings through. And so it looks like if I'm going to go to 32, I guess I just need to take that last position, probably just whip it through a little bit more. And so you can see things like the C shape that we're talking about. It's kind of subtle. It's sort of an S shape there, kind of a reverse S shape. You can see that zigzag shape to a reverse C. So those changes in shape. The idea is that the tail peels away, that each segment is thinking about what it was doing before, and it's just trying to keep doing that. And so in end result, this is what my start off should look like. You can see, now that tail, it feels very heavy, very ponderous. It doesn't feel like drapery. The wind isn't holding it back. It swings through once it gets going. Each segment is sort of thinking, okay, where was I before? Where am I now? Okay, well then I'll try and be here next. And it's always just, that's as much memory as it has. How fast was I going? Where do I think I'll be going next? And then, you know, trying to match that as best it can. So sometimes that means it holds back. Sometimes that means it's going quickly, and so it just keeps trying to go quickly. But, you know, gravity is also pulling it down. So in some cases, if it's sort of at the top of the swing, gravity is going to be trying to slow it down, bring it back to vertical. If it's at the bottom of the swing, if it's swinging through, gravity is going to be accelerating it and helping it swing through like a person on a swing set. And so it might go a little faster. Thanks, Zach. So that's it. But you can see it actually wasn't that far off from what Zach had. The amplitudes that Zach had, everything that was going on, even the timing and where he'd place his cues, pretty much correct. There was just small little offsets in the way the tail behaved. Especially, you can see most of the work I did was in this first 10 frames. Just getting that. Once I got to here, that C shape, well, by frame 12, it was kind of pretty much what Zach already had going on. But it's the way these pieces offset that really start to give it that sense of each segment having its own sense of mass and inertia. And that's what we're going for here. So look closely at your start. And truthfully, sort of meta thinking here, one of the easiest ways to create this impression of a lot of mass is to make sure that you really do a good job at the very beginning of the movement, because it establishes in the viewer's mind, well, okay, I know what this thing is made of. And it makes it easy to sort of overlook any other little missteps further along. So long as you can nail that first part, that goes a long way to creating that illusion. And that's what we're looking for. You also want to avoid anything where it stays in this position as the character is moving along without swinging back down to vertical, because gravity should be pulling it. If it stays in this position, it starts to look like wind resistance is just holding it up there. And that's the other thing that makes it feel a lot like drapery. So it was a lot of work in here, and then it was just a bit of work to make sure it swings through. Okay, stopping my share there. Any questions about any of the stuff that I was showing just there?
David, it's Amy.
Oh, hey, Amy, what's up?
I don't know if you understood my question. It's not so much of like the pendulum tail part movement. I'm really happy with that part of my work. It's the part of the assignment where you wanted us to kind of have it to stop and then move back and then move forward again and then continue on its path.
Oh, I see.
I
So you're
I
concerned
don't
that,
know if I can just add it in because I don't know how to fix that.
so as long as it has some reversal of direction at some point, mission accomplished. So if you're like, oh, I only have it moving forward and stopping, forward and stopping, forward and stopping, okay, then just take your last movement and have it go in the other direction. And that sort of checks the box. So if you have to add something or modify it, do it as close to the end as possible so it affects the least amount of stuff. Because for me, truthfully, it's mostly just about making sure that you attempt all of the different types of behaviors that would come up with this exercise. So if there isn't some point where the base changes direction, then it's a bit of a problem. And also keep in mind, Amy, changing direction doesn't mean I was going this way and then I go all the way back here. It could literally mean I stop and just back up a little bit and then I go forward. That would be plenty. So like if you look at Diana's file as an example, it's mostly going from left to right the entire time. She just has like a small hesitation and back up in the middle, but checks the box. Done. Mission accomplished. So don't think of it as being something that's a huge architectural change to the very foundation of what you're doing. Just look for the cheapest, easiest way to squeeze it in and check that box. Make sense?
Yeah, I just hope I'll get back by midnight to fix it.
Just do your best, and keep in mind for all of these assignments, and this is a good reminder for everybody, it's not about acing the assignment. Don't worry about that. It's more about making sure that you sort of do all of the parts of the process and make an attempt at it so that you can get feedback and guidance on it. That's really what it's about. And truthfully, failing an assignment is actually pretty tricky. If you turn something in, if you've made an honest attempt to do all of the elements, the rubrics, the way it's designed, you'll probably do okay. Getting below 50 is actually pretty tricky. You have to really like not do a good job. So you'll probably be okay. But I'll be looking at yours coming up. So we'll see how you're doing, okay? Any other questions? Let's see here, I'm just checking the chat. Below 50 is a fail. Yes, that is correct. Good to know. I think double check that. I don't think I don't know if the grad certs. Some places I've worked 55 or lower is a fail. As far as I know, at Fanshawe, 50 or below is a fail, but I could be wrong. Yeah, double check that. 60? That's news to me. Well, again, not easy to get below a 60. That's a good question. It might be different. Yes, check under the, I'm trying to think where that general information would be. It should be in the, I can never remember if it's, I believe it's called the course outline, where there's a bunch of boilerplate stuff, about academic integrity and all of this stuff. And there should be something in there. And each school is different. If you have any doubt, the easiest person to ask would be one of the academic advisors. So Eleanor McAlpine, she could tell you without hesitation exactly what the pass-fail point is. But like I say, and generally speaking, most times the way the rubrics are written, that if you're sort of skirting the edge of, below 50, you'll drop to 40 because it's points. And if you're sort of just above 50, well, you'll be on the happy side of 50 anyway. So hitting in that threshold is kind of tricky. But if you're ever concerned about failing, definitely reach out early and see me, and I can tell you how you're doing. And like I say, I'll be grading those bouncing balls tonight, and hopefully the pendulum. 80? Wow, I would not sign up for that program because I am way too tough a grader for that. Okay, fantastic. Any other questions about this or anything else at this point? This is useful stuff, and thanks for asking these questions, folks, because as you can see, you may think you're the only person with a question, but clearly lots of folks are wondering the same thing, so it's good to bring this stuff up. Okay, then I'm going to jump to the sync sketch again, and I'm going to continue trying the screen share and see if it behaves itself. Yes, that's it's good to clarify that. Thanks, Adam. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here. Let's see if it works. And let me close down this. Let's save this as revised. Okay. All right, Maya, out of the way, you. Maya's thinking. Okay, there we go. Get Discord out of the way. And let me check my chat here. Okay, let me tuck this down here. Hopping back to Sync Sketch. Let's see. Let me scrub along here for a sec. Nimish. Okay, so Nimish, let's have a look at yours. One thing, Nimish, check resolution. And I'm going to pull up the file here for a second, actually, right now. Nope, not my default scenes. Pendulum, where is it? Nimish properties, because it looks super pixely. Yeah, so this is actually a common error when folks are play blasting. Make sure you don't have that scaling attribute turned on, because it'll. So you may have had it set to 960 by 540s Nimish, but if you have that attribute called scaling set to something other than 1, you'll end up with a file size that's actually smaller. So you can see when I right click on that file and go details, go properties, and then I click on the details tab, it shows me the actual resolution of the file. So it's 532 by 264, which I'm guessing is 75%, something like that. Let's see, 960 times 75.75. Oh no, that's not, oh wow, is that half? 960 times 0.5. No, yeah, it's somewhere in this weird zone. So I don't know, 60% or something like that. But it's an unusual size. So double check that. For me, I can just tell because it's all pixely. And let me just scrub through here for a second. I'm going to check staging. Yeah, okay, staging is all right. It's not like we can get much closer. Probably conceptually from a plan design standpoint, it might be a good idea when you're planning your assignments to think about how you can choreograph them to use space where they cover more vertical area and allow you to frame more comfortably without having all sorts of dead space. So when you plan your assignment, if you're planning, oh, I'm going to do, this kind of a thing, then you're creating a scenario that requires a really odd ratio. So try and structure your assignments so that they work well within that 16:9 ratio. Just sort of a good bit of advice, because truthfully, part of it is you want me to see your characters nice and clearly. And so when you're thinking about the ball with tail assignment that's coming up, one of the attributes that I'm going to be grading on it is staging. And it's pretty heavily graded how well things are framed, because we're going to be placing a 3D camera, which means you've got to think about the angle that you're looking at. You've got to think about how clearly I can see the character in the environment. And so part of that is coming up with a plan that fits well within that ratio. So give some thought to that. Don't worry about it for this assignment, Nimish. It's fine. The character's still plenty big. I can see it. But be mindful of that. Okay, let's see here. So I'm going to zoom in here. Whoops, let me see here. So similar problem on the startup that I was demonstrating with Zach's file. So check that. These rapid swings back and forth, Nimish, that's part of what creates that prehensile tail feel. It feels like a creature wagging its tail. This section through here, it's working a bit better, but again, the top segment is feeling really constrained that it's operating within a really narrow range, and the bottom segment is wagging around a lot more, and it's doing it really quickly, so for segment number 1, having a wider range on the first segment would be better. And then curves like this, and I'm going to use the rotate X curve, this kind of a thing, if you're doing really fast back and forth, that's not going to work. You want slower swing kind of things like this. And now this is important to note. This is only sort of talking about the timing, not the actual look of the curve, because your curves are going to be goofy. They're going to have weird changes, like they'll be swinging like this and they'll go like that, and they'll do this and they'll go like that, because each segment is a child of the segment above. And so smooth curves aren't necessarily going to mean smooth movement. What I'm demonstrating here is more the idea of that you want to be favoring those apexes of the swing and swinging through the bottom more quickly. And you don't want to have really fast movement back and forth, because that's where you get that wagging tail feel. And that sort of defeats the purpose of what you're going for. Now, for areas where there's less movement, it's working okay. But these shapes here are a little extreme. Probably, to be honest, my advice, Nimish, would be to just start at the beginning and deal with just the first segment, and then just approach each segment separately and try and think about taking that first segment and letting it swing more freely. Sourav, let's have a look at yours. Make sure you hide those first segment or the animation controls when you submit. Great start. Yeah, awesome. Beautiful. That's my attempt at drawing a heart. Here, hang on a sec. There.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. It's so funny to see this. This is exactly what I was demonstrating with Zach's file. So right up to there, working beautifully, don't change a thing. This part, however, so you've got it in this position like this, and at that moment, makes sense. But then when I go further along, it was sort of holding there a little too long, and I would have it start swinging through a little sooner. It sort of creates some of that impression of drapery. I see a lot of this kind of thing too. I see sort of C shape, C shape, C shape like that, which reads like you sort of were animating the entire tail all at once. I think you'll have a much better result if you deal with each segment separately. And if that is how you approach it initially, maybe take a look at this segment through here and re-examine it segment by segment, because I think what's happening is you're sort of holding the top segment in position too long, and then each piece is sort of following immediately behind it. You need those offsets, those different shapes. So the same thing that you're doing here at the beginning where you have these offsets, do the same thing on the first part. The one thing that's a little problematic with the start, and I want to highlight for you, is watch this moment here. So I'm going to mark where, whoops, well, I'm going to try and mark where the tail is. There we go. I go like this, and then I go here, turn on ghosting. Oops, let me get this out of the way. You can see how the tail is swinging back in anticipation. And this first position shouldn't be out of line with where it started, that it would still stay in this channel. So this position would be, you know, in here like that. It's only off by a little, but it's enough that it's worth noting, you know, that I would expect something more like that. And then at this point here, then you would have that reverse shape like you've got. Let's see here, reset that scaling. This moment here especially, see how long we hold in this angle from here to there. It feels like wind or air resistance is holding that tail back, and we definitely don't want that. So make sure that it swings and follows through. Jason, are you with me? Okay, excellent. Let's have a look. For staging, it looks like your sort of limit is like here. So definitely, you know, frame closer on the action like that and like that, because your character is super tiny. So it's sort of hard to assess the animation. Same note for the start off that I was saying with the other files that applies here. So approach that piece by piece. Same issue with the tail hanging back throughout, you know, that continuing to hold back makes it feel like drapery. Still feels like drapery. Still feels like drapery. And then this part here where it's coming to a stop, let me get this out of the way for a sec. Clickety click, and tick. So I'm just tracking the end segment here. Oops. Boy, this offset on the mouse is really annoying. Click, 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 click. So if you look at it with the ghosting on, see how you've got a really big space here and then really tight spacing here. And instead, what I would expect to see is if it's moving at a fast pace through the stop on the body, that tail would continue to swing through and then slow down towards the apex. So that follow through moment, you want to tighten up your spacing, and I'll sort of draw it larger so it's a little easier. You know, sort of as it gets to the apex there, that's where those spaces tighten up. Like that. Oh, God. Fantastic drawing, Dave. Why, thank you. There we go. So tighter at here, sort of more open spacing through here. Fast, and then slower up here. Okay, and that's about it. Truthfully, and folks are sort of at the bottom of the order. The comments get more abbreviated and quicker because truthfully, it's just the same thing that I've been talking about all along. It's about how it's starting off. It's about how it's holding back. It's how it's not swinging through. And those are sort of the three elements that I'm looking at when I'm grading these things. Easiest thing to do, Jason, is just, again, take the first segment first, just go through it and make sure that you're not holding it back, and then revise the other segments. And probably what you'll find is your keys are in the same place, but the positions of the segments are slightly different. And that's what you need to revisit. Let's see here. Amy, let's see, it's past, it's 4 o'clock now. Are you with me? Excellent. Okay, let's grab this one here for a sec. Move this out of the way. Well, it's weirdly dark. What's going on here? Because that's just saying. Let's get it play for a sec. Good. So this is definitely showing the approach of segment by segment. All I would say is some of the reactions. So probably all you need to do, Amy, for, let's see here. Oh yeah, you don't have to change anything about the base animation, Amy. The character is moving back and then from left to right, right to left. So yeah, the base animation is perfect. You don't need to change a thing. You've checked the box. Let's see. Zach, I saw the chat there. Okay, good. Let's see here. Yeah, the start off's working well. I would say the swing to the right, just the amplitude is a little bit too big. So he's got this slow move off and then suddenly the tail flies out. I would just reduce the amplitude of that a little bit. It's a little too extreme. So probably, let's see here, instead of, you know, this position here, you're probably dealing with a range that's more like this, like that, somewhere in there. And part of that is just, if you imagine, this is sort of the most extreme range on this side. If I look at the ghosting, I wouldn't expect it, you know, comparing vertically, I wouldn't expect it to swing further on the other side than it swung initially the first time. So if it's sort of this far on this side, I would think it would be like no further than this, probably even slightly less. So if this was equal, it's probably like, oh, it's, you know, each time it swings, it loses a little bit of energy. So it's in a narrow range. So some of those poses, you might just want to take the key values and just scale them down a little bit, sort of flatten them out. And let's see here. Let me reset the scale. Let me turn off ghosting. This one as well, you can see the sudden big space here. That starts to give it a feel like it's got a life of its own. So again, the amount it swings out here, I'd expect something, you know, sort of more like that kind of a thing, based on sort of what was happening before. Love this bit right through here. Awesome, beautiful offset. You know, the ripple through the tail, all that stuff, awesome. Looks really good. Feels very authentically like a sort of a heavy pendulum thing. And then when it takes off quickly here, this is looking great too. I might have it start swinging through a little bit quicker, especially this moment here. If we look, watch this tail segment, I'm going to track the first segment of the tail. So, oops, let me click here. So there, to there, to there. Whoops, missed that spot. To there, there, there. So look at this in ghosting on that first segment, and you can see huge spaces here and then really narrow spaces here at the bottom. And instead, I would probably tighten up these spaces that it holds back a little more as it's moving quickly. But when it gets to this bottom, it would swing through really quickly. It would maintain that speed. So you might have it swing sort of much further towards the stop like that. Good job as well dealing with the collision with the wall. That's, yeah, well done. It's a very complex and difficult thing. I can see you're sort of like the top segment was putting on the brakes because you were trying to avoid hitting. Just let the top segment do what it would do and deal with each subsequent segment as you would deal with it. And truthfully, again, the lazy person's solution, if it's like, oh, managing that collision, then just take the box and move it out of the way. Because collisions with the environment, not required, not a part of the assignment. Even if you do it beautifully, it's not really getting the grades it deserves because it's very challenging, but I'm not grading on that. So you don't need to worry about that. Okay. Yeah, some great stuff here. Yeah, well done. There's just a few places like, see here, huge jump in spacing, where I might add some frames there, where you've got this position here, then here, and then all of a sudden, boom, huge gap, and then close again. So, you know, that sudden jump, it looks like you've got a couple of keys that just need to pull apart a little bit. Okay, let's see here. Is there anybody I've missed on the feedback who've submitted their stuff? Let's see. I see markups on everybody. Let's see, Stuart. Yeah, we talked about yours. Okay, good. All right, fantastic. Any questions about any of the stuff that I've talked about? Hit it up in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen for a second. Fantastic. So one last break, and then I'm going to jump into the ball with tail assignment that's coming up and just talk a little bit about the character rig. So if you want to sort of follow along with some of what I'm doing, go ahead and open up a fresh session of Maya, reference, don't load, reference in the Mooly ball, and I'll talk a little bit about how it's going to differ from the bouncing ball assignment and how it will be the same. But for now, let's take 10 minutes, stretch your legs, get a breath of fresh air, build those good RSI fighting habits. When we get back, we'll talk about the ball with tail. Pausing recording and